stepping into the spotlight this afternoon, Vice Chairwoman of NSN's ECD Board and award winner and account executive of Johnson & Johnson, Kara Wilson, along with co-founder and CEO of WiseCo in Marion, Maine, Hope Wiseman. Come on.
Yay.
How's everyone doing?
Hello.
People, by the way.
Yes, you do.
So we are so excited to have Hope with us. Just a fun fact, Hope and I actually grew up in the same neighborhood, same street, and she's actually my Spelman sister. So this is a full circle. Shout out to Spelmanites. This is a full circle moment for us. But yeah, we're gonna dive deep into entrepreneurship. So by raise of hands, how many are interested in entrepreneurship in the room? Okay, that's basically everyone. Okay, great.
Awesome.
So yeah, y'all are gonna love this session. We're gonna have a great time. We're gonna have some fun. So yeah, speaking with Hope, can you talk about the cannabis industry? So I know when we hear about like cannabis, there's some like social stigma associated with cannabis.
Yeah.
How has your role impacted the industry?
Wow. Okay. So that is a super loaded question. I'm going to first start with the stigma around the industry and how I even ended up here. Because, like this is not something that I, was a child saying, I want to own a dispensary when I get older. Definitely not. I didn't even know that was a possibility. So this industry is, I was so excited when it became, when the conversation about legalization started, right? Because this is an industry that already had a demand that was built. We already knew what it was, and it was becoming legal. So it was Prohibition 2.0. And we all know how that went. So essentially, I realized I had a blueprint to follow. And that was super exciting for me. How I got here, though, so I, like Kara said, I went to Spelman College. I majored in economics. And my career path was leading me towards investment banking. I just knew that's what I was going to do. I was going to work my way up, become an analyst, eventually a VP and, running my own group, or I would eventually go back to business school and work my way up the corporate ladder. I just knew I'd be a CEO one day of a Fortune 500 company. And when I did land my first job in investment banking, I remember I was sitting on a trading floor. I actually was in equity institutional sales back then. So I was sitting on the trading floor and I was looking up at CNBC and they were talking about the legal cannabis industry on CNBC at work. And they were looking at it from, an economic, a business perspective. And I just realized this is going to be one of the very few opportunities of my lifetime to get in on an emerging industry that, I'd have the opportunity to get in at the ground floor level. I understood that it would still be, developing and the rules were still being made. So I had a chance to influence the actual regulations that would govern the industry. So for me, I saw this as just, okay, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity and I know what's about to happen. I got to jump right in.
Yeah, awesome. So just being a Black woman entering the cannabis industry, how was that for you? Like what type of barriers were you facing?
Yeah, this industry has so many barriers to it just because of the fact that it is federally illegal. It's highly regulated. Cannabis is a controlled scheduled substance. So at the end of it is very much so difficult to navigate no matter who you are, right? But I want to go back to Spelman here, right? Because Spelman really gave me a foundation that I took into everything that I did from my career to my personal life and all of that. So back at Spelman College, as you know, our freshman year, we take this class, ADW.
Yeah, shout out ADW.
Yes, African diaspora in the world, right? So it's interesting because during that class, I really was able to understand, we all know that Black women are strong, right? But when we understand and learn the history behind our strength, it gives you a whole nother sense of pride and purpose. And I've been able to carry the resilience of my ancestors through every room that I walk in. And I actually do think that ADW gave me that foundation. So walking into places like You know, when I walked into JP Morgan as a sophomore, as one of the very few sophomores that was even able to enter into their internship program, and then on top of that, the only black woman as a part of that program, without the hard skills that a lot of my peers had that were coming from Penn and, you know, all the Ivy Leagues, because that's pretty much the only place that JP recruits at. And I had to go in there with confidence, believe that I belonged, believe that although I might not have the hard skills, I have the ability to learn them and to do it well. And because of that confidence that I've had, went to JP Morgan as a sophomore, killed it. You know, I was able to meet mentors, meet people that were willing and excited to teach me because of my eagerness to learn. I was invited back for another summer and for my junior year. By the time I went into my senior year, I had a full-time job offer and was able to shop around. I had banks competing for me. And like I said, I walked into that bank, I didn't know how to build a not a nothing on any type of spreadsheet. And it's been able, you know, now that I walk into rooms where I literally am still the only black woman in the sea of older white men who do not see themselves in me and who do not understand how I could be in the same room as them, I lean back on the strength and all those experiences that I had before.
Yeah, so that's really interesting because you talk about your experiences. So how have your experiences really shaped your personal brand that you built for yourself as a woman and as a black woman and as a CEO in the cannabis industry?
I like to tell people that I began my journey in the cannabis industry straight out of college, right? So I was working, it was my first year of school, and I began pursuing it then. A lot of my media stuff happened around when I was 25. I'm turning 33 in 2 weeks. So all of these experiences, I like to say, I have lived a lot of different lives in my almost 33 years. I was a former Falcons cheerleader. At Spelman, I was Miss Black and Gold, Miss Freshman, Miss Black and Gold. Did all the pageants, all the things. I used to work for Red Bull, driving the little Red Bull cars, worked in the writing center, editing papers, writing papers with people, worked in investment banking. So all of these different things have really shaped who I am. And now that I'm older, I realize, wow, all of these experiences, without them, I would not be here. You know, I wouldn't have the confidence, the resilience through hard things, the ability to walk in rooms that I typically don't seem to belong in and fit in and figure it out. And I think that is important for everybody to kind of follow your heart and the things that are called to you. I know a lot of people here are navigating what type of industry they want to be in, kind of where they fit in, because your skill set can be transferable, right? So continue to learn new things. I loved my time in investment banking as an equity institutional sales analyst because I learned a little bit about a lot of different types of industries. And it's allowed me the ability to be a better leader, relate to more people, as well as I've really identified and honed in on the things that I enjoy and that I like and that I'm good at.
So when you talk about transferable skills, there's a lot of people in here who are either interested in getting into sales, whether it's tech sales, pharma sales, medical device sales. What would you say your recommendation is to really hone in on those transferable skills? Like what can make someone stand out by leveraging their transferable skills?
Well, the first thing is you really got to know yourself. You know, and then know your skill set on top of that. So knowing yourself, understanding what you like, and all those good things will lead you towards industries that you want to do. Having the hard skills are super important because at the end of the day, in sales, you're going to have to know how to sell. You know, if you're afraid to pick up the phone, if you're afraid to go out and put yourself in front of people, work on that first and foremost, because that's a hard skill set that you need. Honestly, whether you want to be in sales, whether you want to be an entrepreneur, no matter what, you have to be able to clearly communicate what it is that you are selling, your value proposition, how it's different, and you have to be able to do that with confidence. You can't be afraid of that. But I'd say that being exposed to so many different things, it just allows different people to see, you know, you can tailor your experience to that person that you're selling to. If you've seen more things and done more things. So for me, being well-versed and well-rounded has allowed me to expand my business into places that I normally wouldn't have. In addition to running my own business, I also invest in other entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry. So it's allowed me to understand other business models that are not necessarily mine, be able to look at the back end of a business and understand if it's run right, no matter what it is. So it's just important to have that variety.
Yeah, and when you speak about entrepreneurship, what are some of like the key characteristics that you've learned along your journey that made you successful in your position?
So I'd say one of the most key pieces to entrepreneurship is having a vision and solving a problem. And a lot of people say that, and I think you think about it like it has to be, you know, some really, really, really big problem. Like, no. You essentially are building a business that's, you know, brand new, and it's an idea that no one's ever heard of, but it's still solving a common problem. Or it's a business that maybe you're just refining a already existing business model and making it better or more unique for a specific use case. So whatever you're building in entrepreneurship is going to fit in one of those two categories. I know for me, going into an industry that is being built, but there's already, you know, an idea of how it should be and how it should look, and there are already brands in a part of the cannabis industry that are not necessarily legal yet, but it's what the typical consumer knows. For me, being successful in the cannabis industry meant, okay, who exactly am I building this for? You know, I realize I'm building this for the cannabis consumer that cares about having regulated product. They care about the customer experience. Quality is important to them, and understanding where the product came from and how it was made. That's my consumer. I'm not necessarily marketing towards the consumer that only cares about price, that, you know, cares about loyalty and has been buying from the same person however they do for however long. That's not necessarily my consumer, and there's no need for me to, you know, tailor my marketing or business towards it. Additionally, in what I do, and I think this is important, you know, as everyone is navigating different industries, understanding the legislative, process and how you could potentially influence the regulations that govern your industry, and just staying, you know, even if it's not something that you can influence directly, staying aware of what's happening in your space so that you can be ahead of the game, and look for opportunities that, you know, other entrepreneurs may not see.
Yeah. So when I think of your role title, like CEO of the cannabis industry, I want to know more about like your day-to-day, or so for instance, Governor Westmore, I know you had interactions with him. Like, what does that like really look like?
Wow, every day is different, and my journey has changed a lot over the years. So I've been at this for almost 10 years. And which is really crazy to think about and say. When I first started my business, I was everything to my business. I actually founded my business with my mother. She's a dentist by trade, but an entrepreneur at heart, and she and my grandmother instilled a lot of what I do and who I am now in me. So we started our business together. I mean, it was her, me, our third partner, who was a longtime family friend, my mother's best friend, who is now my GM and has been with me since day one. And it was like literally us in my mom's break room at her office, working on this application, figuring it all out. Once we won, we were kind of like, okay, we didn't know what to do. It was still just us.
Right.
We didn't hire teams, we didn't do all the things. We stayed extremely lean. Which we had to. We didn't have a choice, you know, and we were competing with people that had very deep pockets, that even had some experience, that had been winning in legal states. So, you know, we didn't really know what we were up against. Thank God I didn't know, because I don't know if I would have done it if I had understood what I was up against. But, you know, we bootstrapped everything. When we first opened, I was the one answering the phones. I was the one, you know, if I had to go out and pick up some trash out in the parking lot, I was doing that. And then I came back in, and I might have had to stay till 1 a.m. to do inventory, you know, and all of those. We did everything.
Yeah.
And I was happy to have those hands-on experiences and learn every piece of my business, but I knew I didn't want it to always be like that. So I began, me and the now people that are my leadership team, we began writing down every process of every single thing that we did so that we could create what are now, our best practices, our standard operating procedures. And the past few years, I have gotten extremely obsessed with automation and AI. And, I have been working to streamline our workflows. I'm definitely that tech nerd that can sit in front of my computer all day. So, to answer your question about what my day-to-day looks like, I was, speaking a lot, running around, doing all those things, and it really did take me away from the business. And like I said, that's when I realized I had to create processes because I couldn't be everywhere. And these 4 people that started the business with me couldn't just be us. We now have over 50 employees. So, thank you. We created these processes, procedures, we hired people, we created a way to train them, and I've spent really the past 2 to 3 years streamlining those processes, making them better, faster, integrating more automation, like I said, AI. I'm definitely contemplating building some software. I think that we have to utilize those tools within our own lives, within our businesses. All it's going to do is make us more efficient, faster, better, smarter. So that's what I'm working on.
Yeah, so the use of AI and just having a team of 50 people, being this amazing leader, do you ever struggle with delegation or asking for help? Because I know some people were type A, we like to lead everything, be leader of this, leader of that. How have you overcome that? How do you ask for help? I'm struggling with this today, I need help with X, Y, Z, to make you a better leader and your team overall more effective?
It's funny because, you talk about type A people. I had to come to the realization that I am actually type B. Okay. I'm a little all over the place. It's funny, my makeup artist this morning, she said something to me and I go, I forgot you told me, to prepare that way. She goes, it's okay, you have 100 tabs open in your brain. And that is exactly how I live my life. So as far as I am actually perfectly fine with delegation. You do it. You do that for me. It's easy for me. It's always been easy for me. But what I've realized is I surround myself with type A people. I was really quick, and something that I had to do early on in my career because it was lonely. There's not a lot of people in the cannabis industry that look like me, and especially, 8 or 9 years ago when I was first starting and had no clue what to do, there was literally nobody in the space that looked like me that was successful. So I had to figure out a lot of my own and do a lot of personal development work, a lot of therapy, a lot of all of those things to kind of understand my leadership style. I was immediately thrusted into the media, being put on stages, like I said, next to people with way more experience than me, smarter than me, and I was expected to show up and be exactly like them. And so I just kind of was like, what do I do? I just started saying, okay, yeah, you know your way around a spreadsheet a little bit. You can build a little baby pro forma, but go hire a CFO. Right. You have an accountant, that's great, a little independent accountant. Y'all are at the point that you need a big firm. Go hire a big firm. My attorney, she's worked with plenty of small business owners. She's a Black woman herself. She steps in when she knows, okay, it's time for me to step in for hope. My mother, my mom's a bulldog, and she's been in front of me my whole life, moving stuff out of my way. She still does that for me today. My right hand, my VP of business development, I call him my right hand. He knows, when it comes time in negotiations, sometimes people can overpower hope. They can't overpower me. He knows it's time for him to step in. So everybody has understood their role. And everyone plays their part. I have no problem letting other people do it. And I also realize I attract people that genuinely want to do the same things as me because I'm constantly telling people about my passions, goals, and desires. I'm attracting people that are filling in my gaps, and they're excited to. They don't want to be me. Right. They don't want to do what I'm doing. They want to do what they're doing. And everyone's extremely happy, and we're all rising together. I don't know if you saw, I just got excited saying that, but I think that's my favorite part about entrepreneurship is making everyone around me, making their dreams come true. and helping them realize things that they never thought that they could, and empowering them to do it on their own. Sometimes I sit back, I'm like, oh, I don't have nothing to do today.
Yeah,
that's cool.
So with your team and empowering your team, how do you determine, how do you determine who is on your team? Like, what do you look for when you're hiring these people that you want to come be a part of your team?
Yeah, so definitely, like, it depends on what I'm hiring for. So essentially, I have two sides to my business. Wiseco is our parent company, and it's our, I guess you could say, the corporate side of our business. We are on that side vetting deals and opportunities to partner with other companies or just invest in them. Also, it manages and runs the back end of Marion, Maine, which is my retail business, which is a typical, storefront. We have what we call bud tenders, retail associates, and then I have an inventory back office team and a management leadership team. I have a marketing team that kind of works across everything that I do and my own personal brand. Kind of how I did that was starting small. Like I said in the beginning, I did everything. So all these departments, I was once the head. And once I understood, okay, these are all of the things that we need to do to make that happen. Also, my business was smaller then, right? So when we were seeing 50 people come in our store a day, it was easy to make sure that our processes were running the right way and, that they were working well. And as we started to scale up, I'd go, okay, now we're seeing 100 people a day. I need to add double the size of my bud tenders, Now we're seeing close to, on my worst day, I'm seeing 500 to 750 people on our worst day. On our best day, we're seeing 2,000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's like all day, in, out, very high pace. And then, it's highly regulated. So this is not just, typical retail. There's a lot more to it. Also, the customer experience is not typically what a customer is used to when they go shop at. They're not shopping at Target now. When they go shop anywhere else, when you go to, Starbucks not good either. I'm like, goodness, where can you shop? When you go to your favorite black-owned store and you shop there, that experience may not be the same at a dispensary depending on where you live. I realized here when I was talking to folks, a lot of people don't know fully and understand how the cannabis industry is regulated, but it's still federally illegal. That means that it is, there's no interstate commerce. You ever hear about anybody shipping anything or anything like that? That's not on the legal market. There's nothing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying it's not on the legal market. I cannot accept anything outside of what was grown from a legal entity in Maryland. Okay, so
it seems like there's a lot of legislative and
there's a lot of regulation around it. Yes, they have a whole department within the state that's state run that issues these and regulates and continues to they come and do inspections, all the things that any other regulated industry has. It's really no different. It's difficult to navigate because it's still developing, so things change very quickly, and the people around me, I look for people that can adapt well. I look for people that are interested in the industry because honestly, it's so high-paced, fast-moving, and so highly regulated. There's so much at stake. It really doesn't make sense if you're not interested for whatever reason. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be a passion for the plant.
Okay.
Because I don't believe that you have to consume cannabis or love weed to work in the industry. It is a very sophisticated, full industry that needs people of all different types of backgrounds. We need people with scientific backgrounds to go into manufacturing and production, people with horticultural backgrounds for cultivation, people with sales backgrounds for the wholesale teams that are actually selling these products to the dispensaries. You need marketing specialists that are putting together at the end of the day, the finished product is a CPG product at the end of the day. So you need everyone for that side. You need people with product testing. Literally anything in any other industry we need to. It's not just for, the culture. We need it all. So there's room for everyone.
It does seem like there's just so much that goes into it. So how did you keep up with this? As a leader, you have to always be continuously learning. Were there workshops you were going to? What were you doing to make sure you were always up to date on your education in your field?
Yeah, and I'm sure all of you guys are here because you are investing in yourself and you are trying to further, your own career. I did the same, So how I even got into cannabis was by exposing myself and going to events. Like I said, my first real exposure to the legal cannabis industry was while I was working in investment banking, seeing it on the TV as, I think Kramer was talking about cannabis and how companies were going legal. And I'm like, they talking about weed on, it caught my attention immediately. I look up and I'm like, oh, okay. So it's time for the East Coast to start playing ball. One of the first East Coast states was, or Midwest East Coast was Illinois. Then New York had a crazy process, and I knew someone that won a license. This is like 2015. Won a license and sold it for $5 million, the piece of paper, because there was only 5 people that won. It was a whole thing. It's not like that now, y'all, so can't sell the paper for that much anymore. But yeah, just navigating that space, I realized that, okay, like how I just said, it's not like that anymore.
Okay.
Why? Because the legislative process is constantly iterating and changing right now. So there are advocates and lobbyists that are going out and doing their thing. The lobbyists are getting to work in the cannabis industry right now. And one of the things that happened, social equity advocates in the cannabis industry, DEI hasn't affected us too bad yet. It's actually a huge focus in the cannabis industry. So social equity is the term that we use, and essentially it's the same idea of DEI, but we're trying to ensure that as laws are being made, that the people who were most disadvantaged because of the war on drugs have an opportunity and have a place in this industry from an economic standpoint, as well as that the tax revenue that comes from legalization is reinvested into the communities that were most harmed, because this is not all about, I think a lot of times when people hear social equity, they think it's about the business and making sure that, Black people get licenses. Everybody who was harmed by the war on drugs doesn't want to now open up a dispensary. Right. But what they do want are their records expunged. They do want to make sure if their dad was gone out of the household for 20 years for a very small possession charge, that now their families, they're receiving some type of reparations for that. That, if they missed out on housing because they had a petty charge, that they get some type of reparations for that. So those are the things that we have fought for as social equity advocates over the years. And because of that, now in Maryland per se, when I first won my license back in 2015, 2016, there was no social equity designation or preference back then. I didn't win my license from that. I had to compete with everybody else. It was merit-based. It was, it was like taking an open book test with all the answers. You all have all the answers, yet it's being graded on a bell curve, and somebody gonna lose, and someone's getting the high score and someone's getting the low score. I don't care if you all write the same thing. That was essentially what the application process used to be like early in the industry. Hence why typically people with deep pockets that could write the same answer and then go hire someone that had 20 years experience doing that, they would do that on an application process. And these applications were much like government RFPs. Responding to them. Back then, they used to make you print them out and all that stuff too. So I walked in to turn my application in with suitcases because they were thousands of pages and you'd have to print out like 10 copies. It was crazy back in the day. But we fought for things to change. So now most application processes, typically you can qualify as, some type of social equity applicant, or they create different designations, whether that is women and minority owned, a disadvantaged equity applicant. Some are justice impacted, so people who actually have minor cannabis charges will get some type of preference in the application process. They typically remove the need to have property before, because a lot of people had to go out, get notes on properties that they never ended up winning a license for, so you paid maybe for 2 years on a property that you never could use. That has changed. We've just worked to make it more fair, equitable, so it doesn't matter how much money you have, you still have an opportunity. However, it's still very difficult even after you get the piece of paper. It's not a golden ticket. It still takes a lot of opportunity. So that's why I've created Legal and Licensed, a coaching community to help minorities specifically navigate this industry.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let's give it up for Legal and Licensed.
Thank you.
So, I'm trying to understand, where do you envision the cannabis industry? Because for me, the cannabis industry is like new. Like, I know it's not a new industry, but how you're describing it and like the legalization behind it, being an entrepreneur in the cannabis industry, it's something I've never heard of. So
Yeah.
where do you envision, or where do you hope that the industry will be in the next 5 years?
5 years, okay. So it's funny, I just got I got a little flack on Instagram for a last prediction that I did of this industry. And it is hard to predict this industry because, you know, it's so up in the air, whatever administration we have in office affects it a lot. So, you know, I can talk a little bit about what I believe the Trump administration and the effects that his administration will have on the industry. I think if anything, I don't think he will have much of an effect at all, if I'm being honest. If anything, I believe it will be indirect and positive from a business perspective. However, I don't believe that there will be any preference or focus on social equity, ensuring that Black entrepreneurs have a space, ensuring that the few Black entrepreneurs that are in the industry are still continued up. I also don't think Trump has historically said that he likes that the states have their own rights, right? Like, do your own thing in your own state, y'all do you. So I do believe that if we do get to some type of federal legalization, which I don't really see during his term. But if we do, that he's gonna kind of leave it the way it is, even though there will be some type of federal framework around taxation and a basic level of regulations. I believe every state will still kind of do their own thing. Interstate commerce is not gonna go away, or is not gonna happen the day that cannabis becomes legalized. There's going to be a lag from legalization to what the industry will actually look like, and there will be a number of years, probably from the day it goes federally legal, probably a good 5 or so years from there until we have a framework that makes sense, that everyone will agree on, because there will be a lot of things introduced and just shut down because another side won't agree. And then I'd say 10 years out from that point, you'll start to see a more normalized industry like what we have now with the alcohol industry. It looked completely different before Prohibition, so.
Awesome. So I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. So if you can tell yourself 10 years ago, just give your younger self some advice as far as like being a CEO, joining the cannabis industry. What is one thing you're like hope, like this is it, like you need to know this for the future?
I would say, if I could tell myself anything 10 years ago, is to build strong habits. As you get older, your life only becomes more intense. You only get more responsibility. Don't let you have a family, all those things. It's only more, right? So continue to build strong habits early. Also understanding that there's a season for everything. I went really, really hard when I was young, and I'm actually really, really proud of young Hope for how hard she went, because Hope today cannot go that hard. I'd be tired. So I'm proud of that, and I think that that's something that, whenever I meet people who are younger that are kind of like, I don't know what to do, I'm like, try as much as you can, and honestly go as hard as you can while you can. Learn as much as you can, and if you have aspirations to be an entrepreneur, to be a C-suite level, especially if you want to go towards like the CEO route where you're kind of a generalist and you're not specializing in any one thing, you have to genuinely be that. You have to understand how to run every area of a business. Doesn't mean that you have to be the one to execute all of these things, but you have to understand it. So expose yourself to as much as you can in your business. Go have those little with someone who's in a completely different department that you think you don't need to know anything about, because if you really do want that, honestly, even when I was climbing the corporate ladder, I was meeting people all over the bank, all over the bank, especially any leader I could find that was not, or that was a person of color, I talked to them, and I wanted to learn what they did and how they moved up. And I kept saying to them, hey, if you ever hear of opportunities, think of me. And I always wanted to have people that were speaking well in my name. I think Darrell said that at the beginning of his speech. You had to find your tribe, and those people, the sum of who you are really is like what are people saying about you and your reputation? And those people usually are the ones speaking your name in rooms that you're not in. And I believe a lot of my success has come from the reason I'm even sitting here. You know, I had people like yourself, Kristen, speaking my names in the rooms I wasn't in. And I think that that's the fast track to success.
Yeah, definitely. I want to echo your sentiments just about like sponsorship and mentorship. Because it does seem like when you were working on Wall Street, you wanted to reach out to all the leaders in the room. How did you determine who was going to be like a mentor for you compared to who's going to be a sponsor?
Definitely. The mentors were more of the people that genuinely weren't in my career circle at all. You know, whatever you're doing. For instance, when I was at SunTrust Robinson Humphrey, so the big black financial building up the street, I used to work there before SunTrust became Truist. And they're the middle market team, that's what they called them. They processed all the orders that the traders did. They sat right behind us. And there were a few older black folks on that team that had been at the bank forever. They'd seen, acquisitions and mergers and all these things. And I really looked to them as mentors, you know, because they were able to kind of give me the lay of the land, tell me who was who I really needed to meet, who didn't matter. Don't waste your time on that. Don't worry about this. But they weren't necessarily sponsors. They weren't people that could go into a meeting and say, Hope deserves this raise or Hope deserves this promotion or anything like that. But they had my back and they were able to help guide me. So I'd say that those are the two differences. It might not be that same exact scenario, and there might be a mentor that is a little bit more related to you. But say a mentor is somebody that maybe isn't in your company directly or completely outside of, you know, the panel that might decide your next move, but just someone that might always think positively of you and put you in the rooms that you needed to be in. Whereas a sponsor is directly related to what you want to do. Usually a sponsor, or what I like to call even advisors, if you're not looking, you know, if you're not directly in the career corporate area and you're just in entrepreneurship, an advisor is someone who's done what you've done and who essentially has the life you want, has the job you want, has the business you want, and you can learn a direct blueprint, or they can put in a direct word for you for advancement. Those are the differences.
Yeah. So I know you talked a lot about empowering your team, members on your team. I just want you to give a little advice for the individuals here as far as like interviewing with different organizations, just some tips and just things that you've experienced or what you look for when you're hiring your team.
Yeah.
Just motivation, encouragement.
Man, it's very full circle, because as you were saying that, I was thinking back to my interview prep days for investment banking. Has anybody ever pursued investment banking in here? No? Okay, yeah. It is a doozy, and I would imagine sales interviews being very similar, just knowing every industry has kind of those typical questions that they ask, right? So first off, just knowing what to expect. You know, you don't want to walk into a room like in investment banking, they love to ask questions like, if you had to get dressed in the dark and pick out, you know, they probably ask these things in sales. They're asking you questions like that to be able to understand your thought process and how you problem solve, not because there's a right answer. But, you know, if you had no clue and then you just walk into an interview and they ask you, like, how do you pick out your socks in the dark? You're like, what? I don't know. I pick out 3 socks. You know, they don't know. You don't know that they really want you to go through the whole process of, okay, well, if I know I have 10 socks in my drawer and, you know, I know they're matches and the probability that I do, that's what they want to hear in an investment banking interview. How you think through problem solving and how you use math to do it, all these things. In sales, they might want to hear something completely different if they're asking you about a scenario about how you would connect with somebody that you don't know. So I'd say that's the first thing. So to me, for an interview with my business, that shows that you've done your research and you understand the business that you are getting into, right? You're not just, that's like sending out your resume to 100 different companies and you didn't tailor anything. You know, and you done applied to a sales role, a project management role, or this, and you use the same resume, and the computer that filtered those probably threw your resume out every time. Same thing with interviews. You have to kind of tailor your answers to the specific job as well, because it's the worst when I get people that have experience doing a lot. I like that. But like, still, I want the answers to these questions to be related to the job that you're gonna do. Even if it's a question that doesn't seem relatable, relate it back, bring it back. So yeah, those are my top tips.
Yeah, one of the things that I feel like is the intersection between the cannabis industry and sales industry is the relationships. So either with your customers or who you're working with, legislation. How important has relationship building been for you as a CEO, just in general?
Yeah.
Like, how high would you rank that with your role?
I think after having a clear vision and having a great team, I'd say next are your external relationships. For me, I believe the reason that we are very successful is because I have taken the time to go out, meet community leaders, meet stakeholders, not only in the government, but just locally. We've gone out and told our story, and we've been able to relate to a lot of different people. So being able to be able to expose yourself and show the true intersectionality of who you really are. We don't have to. I think that's my favorite part about who I am. Like, I don't code switch ever. I really am my full self. I'm a full nerd. I am a full black girl baddie, like to go out. I am a sister, friend. I'm all of those things in one, and I don't like when I have to be anything else but that. Like I was. Go ahead.
How did you evolve into that? Because for you, that might be easy. Like, you can be your authentic self, but I feel like some people might struggle with, oh, I don't want to code switch. I'm afraid to bring my authentic self to the workplace. So how did you instill that confidence in yourself?
I know that it's unique because I do run my own business and I've been able to build my own team. So I'll talk about my experience doing that and how I found my voice from corporate to here. When I was in investment banking, and I was in investment banking down here, and I know this room looks very diverse, but that trading floor did not. My bosses did not. And for me, I did find myself trying to mute who I was. I had real blonde hair back then. I used to pull it back in this little bun. I even used to wear glasses. I don't wear glasses.
Personality.
But I did all these things to kind of like dumb down who I was. And it was funny because I ended up being let go of that job. So I'm like, damn, I done tried to change who I was. And they still didn't like me. And that's when I realized I just gotta go where I'm wanted. So one of the things that I did in between my time in investment banking and the store opening, because there was a little lag there was a lot of years of applying, waiting, building before we actually opened our doors in 2018. So I remember, I went out and got my real estate license. Started selling real estate on the side, sold a few houses, enough to keep lights on. And then I started working with this company that sold, they were a hedge fund. They were trying to bring on clients, and it was these two older white men, right? Mm-hmm. And they saw, I had been putting my resume out. They saw my resume, they called, and they were just like, hey, you don't necessarily have the hard skills, but we can teach you that, but we can just tell from your resume, you're well-rounded, well-versed. The clients that we're trying to get join our fund would love you. And he saw that just from my resume. When I got to know them, loved them, they loved me. I was able to bring some people into their firm and all that good stuff. So I just think that I wouldn't have got that job if I hadn't put on my resume. I was Falcons cheerleader on my resume. I put like these things that I used to hide. That I was embarrassed to tell people about myself because I was like, oh, they're going to think I'm not professional. I realized my professionalism spoke for itself. My work spoke for itself. You can't tell me I didn't just build this pro forma and I didn't build this business. You can't look at my balance sheet right now, my P&L, and tell me I'm not successful. I don't care what I'm wearing, what I said, what I did. Black and white is black and white. So that's my advice to you. Be who you are, but be good at what you do. If you're not good at what you do, then you might as well just leave.
Yeah, the results speak for itself, so just show up authentically who you are. So I know we have a few minutes left. I do want to get some time to talk about your mentorship program, your legal and license.
Yeah.
If someone's interested in that, what would be the steps to get inside that program?
Yeah, so Legal and Licensed is a wonderful, vibrant community of Black and brown entrepreneurs that are looking to navigate the cannabis industry. So if you're just interested and you're like, I don't even know where to start or just want to learn more about it, legalandlicensed.com. Join, it's a circle group if anyone's familiar. You can post your questions, answers, and then I do monthly webinars with different people. Super excited about this month's. It is with he works with my team with sales, discounts, all that good stuff. One of the smartest people I know, can break down data in ways that I never even thought about. So I'm excited to bring that to my community. We need to run with our numbers more. You guys in sales, you understand that, but a lot of entrepreneurs do not run their businesses with that in mind. So that will be an advantage for all of you going into your entrepreneurial journey. But yeah, Legal and Licensed, like I said, we are building resources for you guys, state compliance guides. I'm giving you access to all of my vendors and my attorneys. Me and my CFO are building out pro formas that people can customize. Me and my attorney are building out templates for legal documents that everyone can use. So I want to just break down and demystify the process so you can have all the resources and tools that I didn't have.
A whole little toolkit available for everyone. So let's give it up for Hope one more time.
Thank you.